Hi guys, this is Mrs. Gassler and we're going to talk about how to finish up your lab notebook entry for the Mass and Change lab, and that involves writing the summary and make sure we've got everything. So what you're going to need is your handy lab notebook, and there's a paper in the front that we're going to refer to. I've got a second copy. Now you've already done the lab. Quick question. Did you mark off the steps as you were done? Because you get a whole point for that. Make sure you've marked off the steps as you finish them in your lab. Did you write down any observations of things that you noticed while you were doing the lab? Those should be there. And then you've got your data neatly collected in your lab notebook. Now, I don't really like turning pages a whole lot, so I'm not going to start my summary here because I think I might need more than that many lines. If you'd like to start your summary here, you can. I'm going to go ahead and flip over to page 6 and write my summary. Now the lab notebook layout and grading rubric has how to write the summary right here. Summary. All right. It says we're going to complete 6 sentences about the lab based on the sentence prompts given, so we're just going to start these sentences. The first one says, the purpose of this lab was. So I'm going to start off my lab like that. The purpose of this lab was, and I'm going to flip back over here. There it is, to determine whether mass remains constant or changes. To determine, remember, if you make a mistake, a single line and then keep going. To determine whether mass remains constant or changes. Next sentence. My hypothesis stated. Now this is going to be a tricky one because I didn't actually write a hypothesis. Maybe I'll make one up. I think mass will, so you answered the question, I think mass will because, and so that's what we're going to write here. Maybe you can start my hypothesis stated, but perhaps you'd rather write something else. I thought mass would stay the same. Now if you thought mass would change, you would write that here. Because, well, why did you answer that question? Why did you say that you thought mass would change or stay the same? It seemed right. Sure, that sounds like a good because. Maybe you have a different reason. You can literally copy over what you wrote here for this sentence prompt right now. All right, next sentence. The results are. Okay, this would make more sense if it said the results show. Now you've discussed this hopefully in class with your teacher about what you saw happening. Most of the time mass didn't really change a significant amount, but there were 3 situations where something noticeable took place. So we saw mass, this was just because of evaporation, it would have stayed the same. Here we gained mass and here we lost mass. So the results show that in a closed system mass is constant, but in an open system, mass can change. But it's not destroyed, it just left. So you might describe that if you'd like. Sentence 4 says, therefore I accept or reject my hypothesis. I said mass would stay the same, so I'm going to accept my hypothesis. If you were right, you would accept your hypothesis. If you were wrong, you would reject it. I accept my hypothesis because mass did stay the same. What I thought would happen is what happened. That is usually the reason there. Next sentence, my results match or do not match the accepted. In this situation, our results do match. If you had some ridiculous errors, like you forgot to measure the sugar cube before or you spilled things, then you might write that you don't match. But here, my results match the accepted results. Oh, made a mistake. Match the accepted results. And then we got a little because here. See the because? Because mass was supposed to stay the same in a closed system. and not in an open system. Now, if you'd like to write that a little bit differently than I did, that's perfectly acceptable to use your own words here. Last thing says sources of error include. Now, even if your results match, if you found what you were supposed to find, you still have to write down sources of error because you're never exact. So let's list some sources of error. Sources of error include. Now, here's where you're going to write down interesting things. Why did you see the mass change even a little bit? So we should have seen in pulling apart the steel wool and dissolving sugar and the melting of ice, we should have seen those stay constant. We should have seen no change, but we did see a change. Well, why was there a change? You know, pulling apart the steel wool, we've lost a bunch of little pieces. I even wrote that down as an observation. Steel wool pieces came off. Okay? So your observations can help you find sources of error. Sources of error include steel wool pieces falling off. So you need to list at least 2 sources here of error, and so think of another one. One of the ones that people don't often realize is the droplets of water sticking to the stir rod. You stir the sugar in the water, and you should have also stirred a little bit in the test tube. And then some of that stayed on the stir rod, so you actually took a little bit of mass out when it really would have been the same. Droplets of water sticking to the stir rod. All right, now, once you have your summary, the last thing we need to do is make sure we've got this. We used blue or black ink. We crossed out our mistakes with only a single line. The lab must be signed and dated at the bottom of the last page. So after your summary, sign your lab. Yes, that's what my signature looks like. And date it. Today is 9/2/16. Okay, so to turn in your lab notebook, close it, give it to your teacher. No pictures necessary, just hand it to them. Thanks for watching.